Now we're joined by Jessica Anya Blau, the author of the new book, Mary Jane, a Novel, which has been hailed as the best book of the summer. Nick Hornby, who we spoke about a little earlier, is a fan, and so are we. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. It's great to have you on the Balanced Book Club. I've been dying to ask you about the inspiration of your main character, who gives her name to the book as well, Mary Jane, and if she's based on a real person in your life.
I mean, if anything, she's based on me. I mean, I grew up in Southern California and she's, in Baltimore in the 70s. And it's very much not my childhood at all. My family wasn't like that at all. Actually, my family was like the Cones. I grew up in a very sort of tidy, maybe too conservative neighborhood in Southern
Mm.
California, and my family were the kind of hippie freak outliers. And we had the messy house and the refrigerator with all the hideous molding food in it. So, but internally, I was like Mary Jane. Like I love tidiness and order, and I love Broadway musicals, and I love singing, and I loved mothering, and so internally, it's like me popped into somebody else's body in a different time and place. And to me, it would have been a dream come true to suddenly be a summer nanny and hang out with a rock star and a movie star and a cute kid. Like I would have loved that at 14, but I was going to the beach and hanging out with the surfers. And I had in Southern California, there's tar comes up on the beaches. And so you always had tar on the bottom of your feet. And in summer, you just didn't put shoes on. So you'd have this sort of like black, it's almost like you had a built-in shoe on the bottom of your feet from hanging out on the beach. So it was a childhood very different than Mary Jane's, but internally she's sort of me.
Sounds like a really interesting mix of a lot of different things and aspects of, what happened when you were growing up. But beyond the title character, did you have any real life rock stars or musicians in mind when you were writing this? So with like the character of Jimmy, for example, or the character of Sheba.
Yeah, I mean, for Jimmy, I had just read Keith Richards' memoir. I don't know if you read it. It was really good. But it's not Keith Richards. I mean, Keith Richards is English and but he was a heroin addict and he played guitar. So a lot of the internal stuff of what it feels like to be a heroin addict or what you're thinking of or what you're driving towards, or even how Keith Richards felt about playing guitar, I sort of put this internal life in Jimmy. But I wanted Jimmy to be just sort of this really good, nice Southern guy who's loving and open and kind, and he's afflicted with heroin addiction. He doesn't choose to be an addict, and I just want him to be just this really all around great guy. Not that Keith Richards isn't, but Jimmy's a very sort of American guy, and Sheba. I mean, I was thinking of all those stars who have one name, like it's just the power in a single name, like Cher, Madonna name, like it's just a hugely powerful thing. And so for Sheba, I wanted her to have that power, but also be incredibly kind and compassionate, somebody who doesn't go around and exploit their own power or abuse it, somebody who has it and is able to not exercise it at all moments. And so, and I was also thinking of the 70s, all those stars, how stars in the 70s, it was like they had this public persona and you didn't entirely know what was going on behind closed doors. It was like you look at Donnie and Marie and the Partridge Family and the Brady Bunch and, all these sort of classic American, kind of bands and groups and Sonny and Cher. And behind the scenes, there was all this chaos and disorder and dysfunction that we all go through. But there was this sheen to stars that sort of started eroding with, media, and now it's like 24 hours star watching TV and text, and like you can't go to rehab. It's hard to go to rehab and not let everyone know. And so the 70s, it was like I wanted it to be at a time when a rock star and a movie star could hide out in somebody's house, and there's no cell phones and there's no internet, and you could be anonymous and hidden away. And so Shiva, I just wanted her to be somebody who had this really big public persona, but then when you got down to it, she was just this great woman.
You came up with the
Carry
idea
on.
for this story. Did you know that you wanted to write a book around music, or how did the idea start? Was it with the story of a character, or was it about writing a book that revolves around music?
it was a story. I had been at a party and a woman had mentioned that she was a summer nanny in the 70s somewhere, and that a famous person was in living on the third floor for the entire summer, and nobody knew this famous person was in her town. And I just thought, wow, that's the most amazing thing I'd ever heard. It was just so cool. And so I started with that. And, you know, and this woman told me nothing else about it. I don't know, nothing about her life or the people. I mean, I know nothing about her story except for that simple fact. But that simple fact to me was just like amazing. And I thought, well, how fun would it be if it was this rock star and this movie star, and if it was this 14-year-old girl. And I was living at Baltimore when I started the book. I finished it when I was in New York City, and I've been living in Baltimore for quite some time. And so I just, you know, it was sort of started with that single idea, and then I had the character, and then it was sort of like fantasy dream, like, wouldn't that be fun? And then Baltimore was so strange and foreign to me. Like I said, I grew up in Southern California, and I lived in that neighborhood where the story takes place, in this neighborhood that was designed by the Olmsted brothers, who designed Central Park. And it's this very sort of historic, beautiful neighborhood, but it has this really terrible history of racism and you know, this awful history. And so, you know, you can't live there and not be aware of the present and the past. And so it just seemed like a really great setting to put somebody who was going to deal with sort of, I don't want to say antiquated, but really kind of conservative ideas and values, and be faced with more fair and honest, you know, there are some things within her life that doesn't change. She loves the church in the beginning and she loves the church in the end. But she's exposed to a bigger world. She has this very small world in this house, in this neighborhood. And, you know, and so to me, it was like a really interesting setting and place. So I sort of took this idea from this one sentence somebody said to me at a party once, and I threw it into Baltimore, which was always so odd and fascinating to me, you know, and it has this interesting and shameful past, and has a really interesting present. And I threw it into this neighborhood, kind of through somebody like internally, who's internally me. And then it was like, what would happen? And when you know, the opening scene of the book, you know, Mary Jane walks into the Cone House and sees this sort of mess and chaos and clutter that's unlike anything she's seen in any house in the neighborhood. And when I wrote that scene, I was sort of writing my childhood house, which was messy and cluttered and chaotic. And as soon as I wrote that scene, which was the first scene I wrote, then I knew what was going to be on the other side of it. I knew that Mary Jane was going to have this really organized, tidy, you know, and not that tidiness goes with being conservative, because I'm incredibly tidy now. But, you know, I knew what was going to be on the other side of behind her after she entered this house. So for me, a story always starts with just a single idea. And so for me, it was just the single idea of the nanny, and there's famous people living on the third floor. And then with each thing I write, something else opens up to me. So as soon as I wrote the house, then the two homes opened up. And as soon as I wrote the neighborhood, then the history of the neighborhood opened up. It was just, you know, everything sort of unfolds in my head as I move forward.
I have a couple of quick fire questions for you.
Sure.
Okay. One, have you ever been in a band? Has anyone ever written a song about you? And talk us through the Spotify playlist for your book, because I've been listening to Al Green today and it's made me very happy.
Oh, it's amazing, right? And that song in particular was Love and Happiness.
Yeah.
That song, I can't even tell you how much I love that song. I'm so glad you've been loving it. It's an amazing song. All right, have I ever been in a band? No, but I love singing, and I used to always be in chorus and choir. And has anyone written a song about me? Yes, a boy once wrote a song about me, and I remember that the chorus was, "You shook me, baby. You really shook me, baby. You shook me, baby." And I remember it was written on yellow lined paper, and he gave it to me, and my friends and I just reading it over and over, and me thinking, I can't believe he wrote this song about me. And I think the title of it was "You Shook Me, Baby." And so the Spotify playlist, I probably listened to 1,000, not even 1,000, thousands of songs in the time I was writing the book. I had a car and I had it on Sirius 70s, and I would just listen to 70s, and then I would listen, you know, it was just, and so to pick my favorite songs was impossible. So I tried to pick my favorites from sort of each category of songs, you know, like the ones that just made me so happy and brought me so much joy. So there's a song from Jesus Christ Superstar, the musical, in there because I too love Broadway musicals and I love singing soundtracks. And I love that musical because it was just because it has good childhood memories. And I have, oh, on the, you know, there's Al Green on there, you know, which just, that song is amazing to me. Parliament, Up for the Downstroke. I mean, I hadn't heard Parliament before I was writing this book. And so when I found someone new, and I found a lot of new people, when I found Parliament, I couldn't believe it. Like, I can't believe this band exists and I never had heard them before. And that song in particular, I just love. I mean, I love funk. I love to dance. So all those dance songs on there. I think, did I put Earth, Wind and Fire on there? I was switching stuff around a lot. Yeah. Earth, Wind and Fire. And I think I put Bonnie Raitt and John Prine on there, you know, and that's like from my childhood. My mother would listen to Bonnie Raitt and John Prine. Like everything on there is sort of kind of straight from my heart in one way or another.
Do you think that you could write a story about somebody who loves heavy metal or opera?
Yeah, because I genuinely like people, because I've just found that if you're alone with somebody, or you spend enough time with somebody, you talk to them long enough, it always comes down to the same thing. It's like everybody just wants to be heard and loved and have fun and smile and feel good. And you want to feel good talking to somebody. And it's like, it kind of doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, or, you know, I mean, it's like you can take people from the farthest parts of the earth and put them together, and it's like the basic human qualities are all the same, and you can always connect. I mean, obviously sociopaths would kind of fall outside this range. So, all right, thank you all so much, and it's nice seeing your wonderful faces.
Thank you so much for joining us today. But that is it, actually. The show is over right now. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you want to let us know about your favorite books about music, you know what to do. We're putting all our contact details in the show notes. We hope you've enjoyed these book recommendations. We know it's only rock and roll, but we like it.